And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is your Sensei Al Bob. Your gray out here to tell you a story. Here I am in beautiful, heavenly bubble. That's right in the middle of Asheville, but it's not. It's a time vortex, and from the 1920s. And so I'm about to leave. About to keep going on the Bob. Thanks for anybody who has put something in the old PayPal. I'm driving around visiting folks without any money in my accounts. So if you could throw something in the old PayPal, that's good. That's the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. You can hear hell on the edge of the bubble, you know. But this is my friend Eric, and here's his beautiful. So he bought this place for nothing back in early 90s. He's got the biggest. He's got 5 lots, right? And look at that beautifulness. And back in the day, the roach boxes, right? So it's let's see. Like now, forget it. I won't walk in. I'll probably kill myself if I try. Because all the steps and everything around here is like OSHA approved. But it's if it's nothing different than it always, same as it ever was, right? Wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, starvation, the 4 horsemen. That's the stock and trade of the corporate oligarchy, fascist transnational state, which has been in existence since Babylon and before. And right about now, my scholarly friends and I, we have been digging up the remains of these advanced civilizations that lived, 60,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, a million years ago, right? And the academics don't. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Look right here. It is textbook. This is no, sorry. So, but I don't care. And you can be a pessimist. So my sweet H, she's the don't suck. I don't suck. Well, you guys are great. And I said, and your life doesn't suck. You live in this beautiful place. I said, she goes, I know, but it's, we're gonna have water wars. I said, well, stop watching the news because we've been having water wars forever, right? If you know anybody who's grown up in Colorado and New Mexico and Texas. I mean, grown up meaning like 5 generations. Mom and great grandpa was there. I mean, they've been having water wars forever, right? And the Green Revolution was definitely not a green revolution. It was a chemical revolution. The forcing, like when my phone gets obnoxious, and I have to like weed through your memory is full. The phone won't work. You need a new operating system. Blah 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 blah. Right? I said no. So I threaten it with there's a thing where it's like you strangle the CPU and it with there's a thing where it's like you strangle the CPU and then it starts over again. I forgot what they call it. It's like a dead stop or something like that. And if you hit that, then this other little box shows up and it says, do this, your phone you may not be happy with what your phone does to you, right? And then yes or no, cancel or go ahead and do this crazy thing like nuclear war with your cell phone. And I always, and then it lets me tiptoe into my memory and I can like, it's like, pruning the garden, right? So, and that's what goes on in our world, That's what's going on right here, right now. And here is the sacred artifact. Ooh, that is the mark of the artist, right? Anyway, So I cruised through yesterday through. I walked. I didn't cruise. The bottom 6 to 8 floors are a hotel, nice restaurant, hotel, ballroom. Need 20 extremely large, really tall hotels downtown. They don't, except for people who want to launder their money, because there are morons who will come and pay journals and they didn't really see that they don't have plantations up here. There was basically nobody up here. And so anyway, but they were all Masons. So they built an obelisk, and it was rich guys, the Vance and Buncombe. So that was the other family. County is named Buncombe, and so anyway, they took it down because they said it was a racist object. No, it's more misogynistic. I mean, what is an obelisk but a big penis? And so, we had the biggest penis there is in Washington D.C. Yeah, and the biggest dick was George Washington himself. So we had the Washington Monument, the biggest dick. The greatest dickness to our civilization is right there. So. And so this is just before I take off, I'm just because they have such great Wi-Fi in my machines. When I come here, it's like, oh, we're home. I can always get on the internet here. Oh, you have a plug that actually works and keep you plugged in and juiced up. Oh, I'm so happy. So when I come here, all my devices kind of work. So how'd you like that show last night? That was kind of fun. That was, you know, a thing that, YouTube has everything you could ever think of, right? And so every kind of TV show, they have some guy who's in his mother's basement making a show, explaining to you everything about Babylon 5 or, Star Trek or Star Wars or anything, every TV show, the Housewives of Atlanta, they go into great detail, over the cup size of Lammy's, sports bra. Anyway, it's, and if you don't realize that is as much a drug as crack cocaine or Oxycontin or chocolate cake or cigarettes or alcohol, because that's just there. That's bread and circus, Your screen is circus, right? And your lovable Sensei Al Bob, your griot, here to tell you a story. Don't believe a word I say. I'm just trying to give you an antacid, right? With my morning coffee. And H makes the greatest, she has those nice little French things that make espresso. I mean, these guys know how to make coffee. Mm-mm. And they have, and she mixes everything up. So she has this French roast, dark French roast, is super ooper duper, and a very nice kind of, I don't even know what it is, but it's a very sweet, mellowing North African coffee that's a decaf. And so it's, kick-ass caffeine, knock your head with a sledgehammer French roast and this other thing. So it mellows it out. So it's like you got that taste of like, yeah, this is coffee, but you're not going to be doing it all along. So because she drinks as much coffee as I do. Right? And how I deal with it is I can only afford crappy coffee, so it's not going to jingle me out, right? So anyway, and I got no money. So once, I have my Mr. Coffee machine and I make that first pot with a new filter and new coffee in there. And then, I make a big pot, it's like maybe 6 cups. And that's that day. And then the next day I sprinkle a little of the tasty, like Dunkin' Donuts coffee on top of that, and then make another pot. And then I do that about 5 times, right? Until it's about to burst out. Right? And then I clean it all up and start all over again. But, by doing that, my 6 cups of coffee every day, instead of costing me $2, because that's roughly what it would be, maybe more, maybe 4, if I did fresh time every time like she does. But she does in this little thing that makes 1 cup of coffee, not 6, right? So it's fresh and yummy every time she does it. And it's going to be nice, a nice a niceness. So there used to be a great Little Athens and the Three Brothers here. And that were my places, and you get a great meal for about $4. Now I was walking around, and there's 5 restaurants every street. You know, and they're all hipster bars. In this one place, they wanted $16 for a bowl that was smaller than this of oatmeal, right? And I went in there and I was looking at it, and it's one of those restaurants where the kitchen, you can see the kitchen. I think that's one of the theatrical things of a fancy restaurant. You get to watch the chef. It's like watching theater. Anyway, so I kind of go in there, and I'm a very observant guy for a blind guy, and I'm looking around, and he's got these boxes of Cargill oatmeal, and in the boxes there are little paper or plastic or little bags, and there's about 5 ones, and there's like a peach oatmeal and a strawberry oatmeal, blueberry oatmeal, and he was ripping it up, putting it in a pot, doing it, and that was $16, and that's Asheville. That was like, oh, that's a perfect metaphor of this place. And I was looking at, so it was about 10 in the morning, and their morning rush was over, and there was really nobody in. I kind of came in, and the lady said, "Oh, sit there wherever you want, and what do you want?" I said, "Well, let me look at your menu, and I'll figure it out." So that's what I did. So, and then I kind of just was looking around, and it was supposed to be like the 1920s kind of, New Orleans kind of thingamajig, but everything was plastic. All the artifacts that should have been, oh, we got this at an antique store. Everything was plastic. You picked up that little, artifact, and half of the stuff was like glued to the wall. But there were a couple of things on this little, thing where where they had the whatchamacallits, where you menus, right? So anyway, so there were a bunch of things, and everything on the bottom of it said "Made in China." Anyway, and I didn't make any noise. I didn't really interact. I just kind of walked around and looked, and they ignored me completely. But when I was, went to that thing where you could look into the kitchen, it, they had, everything came from Cisco or Cargill, right? And when they had a big walk-in and they had all of these meals, everything that was on, I was like, the menu, here's the chicken cordon bleu to this to that, were all these plastic bags, boxes with plastic bags, just like you buy in a supermarket. You put it in, put it in the microphone, and they had all of those. They had basically these kind of interesting kind of frying pans that you could, the handle clipped on. So the guy had one handle and he could clip onto all of these like little frying pans, and they weren't metal, right? And he would take, so I'm opening up this, thing. I think he was making it for himself. He opened this thing up, he put it in the frying pan. That's where I saw he went into the walk-in. He got one of these bags. I looked in there. Was all these racks with all these meals, frozen. Puts it in the non-metal Ferris frying pan. Sticks it in the industrial microwave. Hits a button. He kind of then pulls it out, puts it on the burner, and adds some wine to it, and cooks it up, and he had his meal. Right? And I looked at what he was making for himself. It was this cordon bleu chicken thing, and it was $36. and I saw the bartender. They had all this top shelf, um, vodka and stuff. And I was seeing him, take a bottle and take a new bottle and pour about a third of it into the old bottle, and then had put a funnel on the old bottle and pour a third of that in there, and then filled the rest of the bottle up with water, distilled water. So it didn't have any, R&E test. It was distilled water. So anyway, this is what Astro is. This is what you're, and you don't have to have it, right? And so, so I went around and saw my old buds the day before that, Monday, and so I'm saying, so have you seen this person? No, I don't see them ever. I said, why? And she was, why I never go out of the house. So all of us who did amazing things here that made this place what it is, are like, because they bought my friends here, they bought this house for like, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and $30,000 in '91, and if they sold it today, they have like 10 lots, right? And a lot next to them was that I bought it for $380,000. They have 10 lots that are bigger, that are beautiful, right? That are not crapped out. The lot that was bought was like, a toxic waste dump. And so if they ever sold this, they could go to Paris and live the rest of their life. But they like being here, and they like their friends, and everyone's in walking distance pretty much. This is a walking city. Have you heard about the 15-minute city? That's Asheville, right? So all of these things are right at your doorstep, where you're not going to own anything. You're not going to have a car. I mean, they're going to electric cars. So you won't have a car. You'll hit an app on your phone, and the box will show up. You'll get in. It'll take you wherever you want to go, right? But if they don't like you, you can hit that app all day long, and no Uber is going to show up, right? I don't know who did it, but it might have been HBO. But they had a very, they had, Westworld kind of thing. The movie that was made in the '70s. These guys did it, and they expanded. It was a TV show, and went on, I think, for 7 seasons. And they did a pretty good job of showing what the near future was going to be like, the AI world, right? And there's the thing I did yesterday. I played this kind of like I was telling you on YouTube. People put together YouTube's explaining a TV show, and there was really, J.J. Abrams. Why he got the way he was, he was like he was the Spielberg of his generation, right? So he did 8mm or Super 8, whatever that was, like a real tip of the hat to what's going on. And then he did this TV show, Lost and Fringe. Fringe was, almost 30 years ago. Go to the library and find a DVD of Fringe, right? And this other thing called Person of Interest. And Chris Carter, who did X-Files, right? And Millennium, or Millennial, or whatever that was. And this other thing that was on for maybe 3 years that you don't really see it was about us in the near future, where we're out there in different galaxies. And it was basically what we have already. We have had this thing called um, not Stargate. Stargate something else, which we actually do have. No, what is it called? Solar Warden, right? And we have, like Star Trek, we have fleets of things that can go to different galaxies, different universes, different time zones, right? That's why we have all these TV shows, to just get people kind of somewhat comfortable when all of this technology just explodes on you. And the guy who was, did it, was paid to do it, was, good old Gene Roddenberry, right? Star Trek. And then, he did another thing, Earth, Final Conflict, right? It was straight up he was telling her, hey, just, the visitors are going to show up one day, bang, right above our heads. And then we have to deal with them. And that TV show V was the same thing, right? And they were the reptiles, They had a little skin that they were really hot, looked really great, but underneath they were like they were taking people away and making pate out of them. And what difference is that from us who eat cow, pig, and chicken and fish? I've hung out with enough of those guys, cows, pigs, chickens, and fish, that they have a consciousness of their own. You know, when I lived in Florida, when I lived in Stewart, intercoastal, and Stewart is one of the things that goes out to the ocean. An opening into the intercoastal, and I would sit on my dock, and porpoise would come, right. They were like dogs. They would come, and they'd be right there. I'd be sitting in the chair just like I'm now, and the water would be about 2 feet, and this I had a little bucket of fish, and they knew it, and I'd go down to the fish market, and they had you could get the kind of fish that big sea fishermen would use, right? So you could get a big packet of those things that were still alive, right? And they would scoop them in there with a net and put some water in there and heat seal them. And if you didn't put them in the sun and you got to your boat and then open it up and put them in the thing there in a little sea water, they'd swim around. So I'd have at least once a week because I would go get fish. This fish market was great. It had every shrimp like the size of your fist. I mean, it was really good. And and they were Italian. They liked me. My name was almost like their name. So that was in the 90s and early O's. But anyway, I would sit on my dock, and these guys would come by, right? And the Intercoastal, when I first bought that place in the late 90s with my lawyer buddy, and it was a shitty piece. I mean, it was a beautiful, like, rich person's house of the 1920s, right? And then the Depression happened, and then it just went down, right? And it was Stewart it's like Venice is it's like Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is the big Venice of Florida. Stewart's a little one, and so this piece of property was on its own little peninsula that jutted out into the Intercoastal, and it was beautiful. I think we bought it for $40,000 because the sewer line came right and had a big, beautiful lawn and dock and a boathouse and a big house with a big deck all the way around, very southern, right, and very South Carolina, and it had a big, great room, big dining room, beautiful kitchen that was just part of the deck and looked out there, and that part of the wall was falling off, so we kind of to hold the roof up. I mean, we did all kinds because no one cared. There was no inspectors or anything. So we went to the junkyard. I got some steel beams, right? And I had these Mexican guys who wanted to work and had no place to live. I let them camp out there for almost half a year, and they were good workers. They knew what they were doing, and because I knew lots of, and my lawyer, he knew everybody. My partner, and his wife too, two lawyers, right? Great people. She did all the nonprofit stuff, and she, was an immigration lawyer. So, all the guys who were working came through her to there. And so we put steel columns all the way down, poured concrete, and then lifted the roof up. And so in our kitchen, had this big wall. We moved it all the way around like this, except for the Garland stove and the big metal, big industrial kitchen. We had to kind of who's those guy Hobart dishwashing thing with the metal trays fly in there and things come down. We had that because we went to the junkyard. There was a place near Hollywood that had every kind of restaurant stuff you want. It was a junkyard of restaurant stuff. So and we ground floor was full of. It looked like a restaurant, right? And on that big, we support everything. There was 3 or 4 places where we put steel the roof up, the second and third floor above us up. And why this thing funked out was that the city of Stewart, the county of Stewart, or the powers that be of Stewart, their sewer system emptied out into straight pipe, as they call it, into the intercoastal. And it kind of, by neglect of road, the, that whole corner of where our property was, smelled like a sewer, right? A really nasty, pit, right? And so those guys fixed it. Right? Oh, well, look, we dig this all up. And I went down to the, county guy who's in charge of that. So we tried to fix, we can't do it. Said, whatever you want. You're the only guy down there. We don't care. And so we dug it all up. I got an excavator with a backhoe and cleared it all out. We got, concrete pipe. And what we really did was we connected it over here to the new sewer system, because this was the old Stewart. And it was only about 10 houses on it. So that's why they didn't ever care, right? If it was 100 houses, they probably would have fixed it. But 10, not a big deal. And all of those were like in disrepair, right? And, so we dug it all up, put a concrete pipe to the new system, going downhill, covered it up in and we put lots of French drains all over it. So if anything backed, it would go out into this, savanna that we made. And that was the other thing, is that they ate up all of the wetlands. We just we got big rocks and put them out there on our property line, which was, the intercoastal had eaten up, a fifth of that side of the property. And so we could put big rocks out there and made it a savanna, right? And it surrounded the whole place with bamboo, and it was great. And we got some Caribbean folk who, she was my partner too, the 2 lawyers. She did the nonprofit stuff for people emigrating, and he did the corporate stuff, rich people. He looked good in a suit. I mean, and if you go online, I don't know if you look at Stewart, Florida, Old Stewart, East Coast. They also bought a house right downtown Stewart, kind of across from the hospital. And it was a very nice Florida house, had a pretty big backyard, big tree. So that went over the whole frigging property, gigantic tree. And one banyan tree, or the thing that has the moss on it, or oak, or whatever it was, but big, like 300-year-old tree. And so it gave shade to everything. So nothing grew there. So we turned the backyard into a parking lot for the lawyer's office. And we took half the house, and the back part was the office for the law. And it was so old, it had a breezeway, right? So it had a breezeway, and so the back part of that house, breezeway here, and then another part of the house over here, and a bigger part of the house over here, and that bigger part of the house over here was the law office. The front part, what we did to the front part was we took the front lawn and we raised it up to the level of the front door, which was about 2 or 3 feet above this, sidewalk level. And we built a nice, what is known as a placed stone, thing. Lifted it up to, and then filled it all up with real good dirt, and then put dirt, and like around that we made a raised bed to grow stuff in. But 95% we made a slate patio, big. I mean, it's like maybe 5,000 square feet, right? And so that house. That front part of the house, that was the living room and the dining room, we turned into a French cafe, right? Bar. And that other side where the breezeway was, we made the kitchen over there. And we had a big walk-in wine fridge, walk-in refrigerator, and thing for fish, and so there was easy 20 tables, each with about 8 really comfy seats, right? And we had the roof line go over not quite half of that patio, but if it rained, and we had a nice, banquettes against the house, that about 12 people, and they were like cushy, and then all the way out to the street. So there was about 30 tables. You could seat 200 people there, give or take. And we had a stage and a dance area, right? And the dance area, so most of it was slate, but the dance area and the stage, what do they call it? It's that kind of terrazzo, you know. So it's very nice, and it's you won't get your high heel stuff on it like you might on the tile. But anyway, so we built both those things, right? We bought both those two. They bought that. We bought this, and we started fixing first this place where we were going to, and then we nibbled away at this. And once we got this in good shape, we went full Monty on the thing in town. And again, was at a time when the powers that be didn't care, right? As long and Stewart was kind of a dead town at that point. All the stores were kind of nothing. There was a couple of stores, but nothing real. And this was in the early O's, and like we started this project in the 90s, and like 98, 99, and then keep going, And I was, I knew these guys back in the day, but then I bumped into them when I became, working for the desperate corporate lawyers. So, and they weren't, but they did do that, right? So, anyway, so we got everything really hooked up nice and finished by 06. And I think we spent buying both properties and all of the, construction costs and everything. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. I'm finishing up with this. I'm telling the story of Stuart, Florida.
Of what?
Stuart, Florida.
Oh.
You missed that. You should have actually come to that. That was a good, that was like here back in the 90s. Anyway, we started it going, and then 08 happened. And what happened, that was quite just like this place. There was maybe 400 jobs. They had to, come home and live in mom's basement. They didn't want to stay there, so they came and congregated there. And we brought in best of best internet. And my friends were musicians, so we had instruments all over the walls, and you could take them down and play them. If you could play, there was a couple pianos, you name it, it was there, right? And that's what these kids did. They came and did that. And I did the, Billy Graham thing of the Fillmore East. We had a 8-track digital recorder and good mics and a good PA. So we would document. So that was like, so it was either called the Green Door or the Blue Door. I'm not quite sure which door it was. So go Google it, either one of them. And Bill was the guy. He was a great gardener. That's what he really, really, really loved. He was a good lawyer, but that wasn't his shit. He just made money on it. And his wife, she was a great lawyer. She was like the lawyer that would go do things in front of the Supreme Court, that kind of lawyer. So did you take your walk?
I was walking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, kids, I'm going to go. So how long was this? 37 minutes? That was long enough. I may or may not see you sooner. I wanted to do this because I'm going on the block. Okay.